Heroes created by people's imagination live and commit their acts of bravery in our program, The Legend of Kazakhs. Legends are an invaluable cultural heritage passed down from generation to generation. No wonder they say that the steppe, with its awakening of the sun, is filled with music. The Great Steppe is the most important and usually the least noteworthy landmark of Kazakhstan, the homeland of many modern people of Eurasia and the keeper of many secrets of the past. For man, a wild steppe has always seemed as a source of freedom, creativity, and inspiration. The steppe is like a nurse. It gives fertile fields and succulent pastures. She's brought up many great people, and among them are the glorious Batirs and the wise rulers. But the main sons of the steppe are a simple people, hardworking and patient. And of course, they carry in their soul a love for their native land, to the boundless steppe expanses. The steppe is only bright and multicolored in the period of a short spring, and then it becomes like a bright flowering carpet on which tulips, irises, and bells sparkle with colorful lights. Then, in a moment, the monotonous landscape of the steppe is transformed, and it explodes with all the colors of the rainbow. The ancient Kazakh traditions tell us all about the formation of rivers, lakes, and mountains of the vast steppe. But what about the steppe itself? This legend will tell you about it. The deep blue ocean spread over the whole earth. White soft clouds like birds swept swiftly through the blue surface of the sky, sometimes plunging into salty dark water. Millennia swept past. Slowly the ocean began to recede, exposing a sharp gray triangular ridge of mountains. Once upon the place of the departing ocean, there appeared a desert valley, strewn with stone blocks. At night it was lit by a sad pale yellow moon. And during the day by an indifferent, scorching sun. The wind rushed along the valley, turning large gray boulders, and there was nothing alive in the world. That is, until one day, a huge stone mountain was hit by lightning, which just as quickly disappeared as it had appeared. It split the mountain into two halves, throwing them aside. Suddenly there was a muffled squeak, and gradually the sound grew stronger, slowly turning into creaking words. "Ka, ha, ka," one stone boulder sounded. "Ah, hee, hee," another stone screeched. "What? What is it? I can speak, and I can hear as well. What about you?" "Me too." The two huge stones talked to each other for a long time. They were surprised by everything that they saw and looked around. They looked at the world around them as a cold gray sharp peaks of mountains, at the scattered stone fragments all over the valley. The sun's rays heated up the surface of the shiny stones before the heat, and they luxuriated, substituting their sides. How nice! Yes, it really is nice, isn't it? Suddenly someone screamed and blew the boulders with a cold breeze. Shh, shh. The wind whistled. "I've heard your voices and I rushed to you. I greet you." "Who are you?" one of the stones asked. I am the wind. And who are we? The other one asked. You are part of the mountain that has risen behind you. So you are a small mountain, but the mountains are always calm and silent. I've flown over this world and I have never heard a voice, and yet you talk. How strange. Yes, yes, repeated the second boulder behind the stone. Tell me, wind, what is this world around us? You can fly wherever you want, and you see everything, but we can't move. It's so... Shh, the moon answered, whistling. But I see everything in the same time. Stones and water. It's so boring. But the water, it can be in the form of the sea. It's amazing and beautiful. It changes its color to either blue or bright turquoise, and then pale blue. Absolutely stunning. Beautiful? The boulder said, surprised. What is that? That is what makes you feel something tender inside. My gusty, powerful vortices suddenly become a weak wind, and I freeze in affection when I look at beauty. Well, okay, that's enough for me. I have to go. I cannot stay in one place for too long, the wind exclaimed, soaring up and flying away. The stones thought over the words of the wind, and after that they lost their usual serenity. Years passed like moments, and the stone blocks looked at the blinding sun, and then back at the pale moon, then at the shimmering stars, and they admired them. But then they found sadness, and they talked over long nights. Of course, the bright and luminous petals scattered in the sky are so beautiful, and they can be admired for a long time, one of the stones said. But it feels nothing like the wind talked about. They don't cause the same emotions in me. Uh-huh. And the mountains on the velvet black veil are so beautiful. But they don't cause the same tenderness, and nothing stays inside, said the other stone. Oh ho ho, what a pity if we never see anything so beautiful. Uh-huh. And they sighed in such a way for many years, until one day the cheerful wind came back to them again. Greetings, stone blocks, the wind said joyfully. And to you, free wind. They told the stones of the wind what they think about beauty. They looked at the sun, and then at the moon, and then at the stars, but they couldn't find beauty. Maybe you'll show us the water, the boulder asked, and then we too can see what beauty is. The water, the wind thought. So you've seen it. Water is the rain, which pours from the sky. The rain, of course, is not the sea. But maybe you'll show us the sea, said one of the stones. Ah, no, shh, the wind whistled. That I cannot show you. The stone boulders mourned and grew sad. The wind was really sorry for them, and he exclaimed, although perhaps I will be able to scoop a little bit of it and bring it here to you. At the same moment, the wind whirled and flew away. The night came and passed, giving way to a hot day. The stone boulders stared into the distance and waited for the appearance of the wind. And finally the whirlwind swept over them, and the wind came back. The wind said sadly, "I scooped up a little bit of the sea, but I couldn't get to it. I flew fast, but it all evaporated. All of it, to the very last drop. And only a lump of silt remained in my hands." The wind said, dropping into the dark, moist lump earth, the feet of the stone blocks. The stones sighed in sorrow. "It's really a pity that now we will never know what beauty is." The wind shook its head and flew away. The day followed the night, and melancholy and dejectedly the stone blocks spoke to each other. They were no longer pleased by the moon, the sun, or the shimmering stars. Once, when the sun slowly changed the moon into the sky, one of the stones looked at the lump of earth and saw that a small grass blade was growing from it. Without looking up, the stones watched as the green grass blade grew and stretched upward toward the sky, rocking and twisting. And then the sprout grew with thin and flexible stalks, and the stones felt that such a tenderness and joy was pouring inside of them, filling their stone hearts. The wind came and looked at this green miracle for a long time, and only silently shook his head. And the sprout, gaining more and more strength, turned into a green and lush bush. The stones admired this green wonder. "Tell us," exclaimed the stone. "After all, this miracle emerged from the coma of the damp earth. But what can we do to make sure that there will be more of it around?" The wind pondered and then answered, "It comes from clay and sand, and the sand is ruined stones." The boulders started thinking. "And then what destroys us?" "I do, as well as the sun and the rain." "If it is as you say, then I agree," one of the stones said. "For the sake of such an amazing miracle, I'm ready to become sand." The second stone also plunged into meditation, and then he also firmly said, "I'm also ready to become sand. It's alive. Every leaf is so tender and fragile. It's what fills our life with meaning. What is the reason to live for an eternity in an emptiness and melancholy? It's better to be filled with such miracles." "All right," the wind answered. "I will do as you say. But then you will die." "I know." "And I also know," the stones answered. "Well then," the wind answered, "I will fulfill all that you ask for." For thousands of years the sun had left the sky, and the moon replaced it. The stone blocks slowly fell apart under the powerful gusts of wind, and grew smaller and smaller. Throughout the plain the wind scattered the sand, which mixed with the clay, turning it into soil. In place of the stone desert, there appeared a plain steppe, filled with fragrant herbs and bright flowers. The wind, playing, shook the steppe feather grass. He bathed in the juicy colors of flowers, spreading across the valley the sweet honey aroma. And the stones became so small that they turned into small pieces of sand, which creaked softly. Beauty! What a beauty! And centuries passed. Once, in the swaying sea of steppe grass, a red poppy sprouted, and saxawool shrubs started up a discussion. "In this steppe, we the poppies, we were the very first to appear," the flower said, shaking his red head. "Ha ha ha," the saxawool exclaimed. When my ancestors grew up in this valley, fragile flowers like you didn't even exist. Only wiry, dry bushes could grow here. The steppe appeared also when flowers appeared. No, this isn't true, the Saxoul exclaimed. The steppe appeared when the first bush of the Saxoul grew on it. They argued among themselves for a long time, while the impetuous wind did not fly over them. They lifted their heads and shouted to him. "Wind, wind," they cried. "You've been flying over our plains for many centuries. Please solve our argument." "Yes, I've heard your conversation," he whistled. "And I'll tell you how it was. Once upon a time, in the old days, there were two huge stones. Apparently they were very cold and indifferent, but inside they blazed fire, and their soul was drawn to the most beautiful things on earth. And then one day they saw a green sprout, which was born from a lump of raw silt. The plants listened with the sinking voice of the wind. He went on, and then they decided to die slowly, turning into sand, so that the steppe would appear, covered with fragrant herbs and flowers. And you also appeared. The wind then ended his story and departed. The flower and the Saxoul watched him leave for a long time. The steppe gives you soft sounds of rain, the whistling winds and the hail of the ground, the sound of rolling thunder, and other amazing impressions. The steppe is special. It rustles and lives and breathes. She is stunning and makes you fall in love with it. The steppe is amazing. One moment it is brightly lit by the sun, or it can be cloudy and gray, and then covered with snow, or in the center of the streams of thawed water. There are birds hovering high in the air and nesting on the ground. There are fat herds of ungulates appearing and then disappearing behind the horizon. Grass in the steppe today can gently be rustled by the wind, or tomorrow the brittle stems can crack. Even the ground under your feet whispers and grinds or knocks. The free wind is so dry and hot that in a second it can be wet or cold. The shape of the steppe varies throughout the summer. Only in the period of short spring can the steppe be bright and multicolored. In July, the grass is already burned and turns yellow. All the plants of the steppe are herbaceous. They live well, and where there is a lot of light and heat, but each of them adapts to life in different ways. Some have long intertwining roots, and others have bulbs. The plants are low and usually spread along the ground. Despite the summer heat, many plants evaporate their essential oils, which also allows you to keep moisture. That is why the grass smells so spicy in the steppe. At the end of May, the steppe is transformed, and it begins to resemble the sea. It is covered with silvery waves of feather grass, and when the wind blows, they are swaying. They fall to the ground, and it seems that the whole steppe is shimmering with silver and gold. The bushes of honeysuckles bloom along the forest edges, and the riverbeds and steppe lowlands. It is great to climb a small mound, to breathe in this invigorating air, and to see how the sun is setting, how the sheep flocks calmly and freely graze, and to hear the lark singing in the sky. And then suddenly you understand the beauty of the Kazakh steppe, that it is truly indescribable.